this is on Aura. I'm just going to be um, interviewing my friend here. What do you prefer to go by? Because I know you by different names, and you have a website as well. So I guess my first question is just who do you go by, and then can you just tell me a bit about your website?
Yeah, thanks, Don, for suppose being the first interview. It's nice to see you take some actions. Yeah, I go by Axel. That's my real name. The surname is Peruchou, which is pretty complicated, so I tend to drop that. And yeah, I suppose I'm best known by the website and kind of YouTube channel I have with the name of Dream Sanctuary. So the word Dream Sanctuary should indicate that I'm interested in depth psychology, especially the analytical kind, so much more related to the work of Jung. And there's a huge focus on dreams for me. That's I would say the hidden grammar, the doorway by which I've started to learn how the unconscious express itself. And so I've started that website maybe 3 years ago, but
Mm-hmm.
I've had an interest for much longer than that. It's just I felt confident to start that project 3 years ago.
All right, so tell me about the project you have, and what how can someone who's not as familiar with say dream work in general, how can they understand what sort of project you have going?
Yeah, I mean that's the question. I was thinking about this yesterday because you wanted to make the interview, and like, how do I explain my my almost an obsession with dream? It's personal. Like how do I convey that to people? And I'm not sure. I've got a good short answer because you need to relieve some step of my own life to get to that point. I suppose the where I would start is that when yes, I think I'll start this way. So 5, 7, 8 years ago, YouTube started to be something very different. It's not YouTube now is different than the way it was back then. It was back then there was a lot of very exploratory and novel discussion. It was a very new form of interaction online, and I discovered a few different channels at the time, and I was really intrigued by this level of discourse that I did not have access in my courses in my uni anywhere else. So I found it on YouTube and followed a few channels, and I ended up with the channels called Freedom and Radio by Stefan Molyneux at the time. Now I know people are not too fond of that, but what they might not know is he has some peculiar themes. There's a bunch of video on parenting, and when you dig a bit deeper, he was actually doing some dream interpretation. So he had a few people coming, and he would discuss their dream. So this was insanely interesting to me. I watched everything he did, and there wasn't much at the time online about this topic. Still, there isn't. But there's some kind of big podcast that's doing that right now, like this Jungian life. Anyway, so I started to cover this, and he has also some quite pointy discussion about psychology. He invited, for instance, Richard Schwartz to discuss, who is the creator of a therapeutic model called internal family system. And so, between his podcast on dream, a discovery of this therapeutic model called internal family system, and me starting to discover Jung, this was a storm of interest that really made me think twice, 3 times about what exactly happens during dream time. There's also lucid dreaming. I tried, didn't get much result. There was also other kind of paranormal stuff like out of body experience, but I've never gone far with that. It's just a catalyzes sort of interest. But I kind of dropped it because I don't know, it didn't get so far. And 5 years 3 4 years after that, Jordan Peterson came on the forefront, and that kindled my interest back into this like finally I saw someone who was able to present stuff, because at the time I read the book, like I read Ion, I didn't get anything out of it. It's too complicated. And so this storm between me discovering YouTube and then Peterson appearing at the forefront, this interest in the unconscious, I started to bear my cross and try to go into the world and really make it happen. I felt the call of responsibility.
What exactly do you feel is the responsibility that you have from this calling?
Yeah, I'm getting to
Okay.
this pivotal moment.
Mhm.
So I really wanted to make it happen in the world the typical way, career, job, family. And so I really study as hard as I could, and I decided to go to Germany for a boot camp. And I put so much stress onto myself that I started, during this trip in Germany, I started to feel tired. I had to take medicine because I had massive headaches. And one night I had this dream, right? So it's pretty graphic, but so I'm on a horse, and the horse gets sick, and he starts to vomit everywhere, and he's like a balloon. By vomiting, he starts to spin everything and become small and shriveled, and he dies. And and I woke up the next morning. I'm like, what is happening here? I was so horrified by that dream. It really I was a bit in a daze, and I had this mindset I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna make it happen. But I was stuck by that dream, by that nightmare, like something serious going on. And well, I picked that up, that message from the unconscious, and I'm like, okay, the dream is something that carries me from A to B, right? I was riding the horse, I was going somewhere, and it's sick, it's dying. Oh, oh, I've got a problem here. I'm go I'm gonna collapse. And then I realized that I was in a situation of duress that was so stress when it's prolonged, it becomes duress, and I was going into burnout territory. So with this dream, I decided, and the foreshadowing signs, but I wasn't paying attention to them. My will was too strong. I really dropped everything. I stopped everything, and I went back home, and that's when I was clinically, like a doctor said, I was in burnout. And so the point is, when I figured out that this dream was the first thing that announced to me what was going to happen, I knew I had to take dreams seriously. For me, this is something I cannot afford to miss, because the burnout was such a difficult experience that from that point, it might sound dramatic, but it's a question of life and death to get those signs as early as possible, because otherwise you really have a tough time. And so with this pivotal dream, I really every day focused on getting as much as I could out of the dream, because I can't afford to miss the symbols. It might sound silly, but I've suffered enough. I'm not interested in collapsing again. Maybe some people find that fun. I don't. So I don't want to start project that goes nowhere. I don't want to spend decades on things that means nothing. And it appears that the unconscious is able to anticipate that. So from this moment on, I've been doing my best to follow what's called the individuating tendency of the psyche, which is this anticipation of the future. So when you have a dream, it will anticipate whether some things go well, some things go badly. And after trying, a few years, I moved from Switzerland to Australia. I've met a woman online who's now my wife. I've got kids. I've got my project. My situation is no proof that it's going to work for anybody else, but I've tested this, and the unconscious is really a compass that, for people like me who were lone wolves, it's indispensable. So that's the long answer, but because I can't convey this in any other manners.
Does do you think that so, so, so you compare this to a compass? So
Yeah.
is this compass? Do you think that this compass is something that is innate to everybody? Like, do you think everybody has the capability to pay attention to their dreams and do dream work, or is this something that comes as a calling, as like it's only there if you're a certain kind of person? Because I was wondering about that. So is it more because I think everybody dreams, and I think it's maybe something that like yeah, is it something? My question is like, is it something that anyone do you think can relate to this, or do you feel like it's like only certain individuals who are predisposed, or maybe you could say like they are sort of like uh, molded in a certain way to be able to do this kind of work?
Yeah, I get your question. Yeah, everybody dreams, but I've tried dream before that pivotal dream, and honestly, I found this sickly. It's like, what is this? This is ugly. It's awful to deal with, and I still had some more or less big dreams here and there that I can remember, but I couldn't make anything out of that. So, what makes someone focus on dreams? What's the what ha- what needs to happen for the penny to drop? And it appears that you need to have one dream, one experience that sees you so profoundly that then it then it works. It seems to be that, and this is not something that can be decided. So yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have to have a certain type of personality. I think people who are too young, it's not a good idea. Too young, below 20, 25. Who
Mm-hmm.
knows? Maybe they can try. And it seems you need to have a certain level of ego maturity to be able to look back at dreams and learn from them. This is something you can get. I've studied STEM, and I've done some reading of the classics and got my interest in philosophy, and I've devoured everything I could online. So I did challenge myself at an intellectual level that allowed me to gain this level of maturity and this willingness to, like, maybe I got something to learn here. I'm not interested in being right. So when I have a dream, it's like, okay, what is it saying? What is it saying? I need to know. So what is the foundational experience that makes someone pivot into interest in the unconscious? I don't know. Maybe it's a book, maybe it's a synchronicity, maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
an interview, maybe it's a dream.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. You need to have this foundational experience, and then it sees you. If it sees you right, you can't let it go anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be my answer.
Yeah, it's almost like I think sometimes if you are able to convey something properly. Sometimes people, I notice that sometimes if I tell people dreams that they don't really, it kind of like just passes through them. It's like they're not able
Yeah.
to take it up at all. But like I think that there's some dreams that seem to affect people different, like affect people in a deep level that it kind of sticks in their mind in a way. And I think that's
Yeah.
maybe what it is. Like, because you mentioned 25, and I think that's kind of around the age I started to realize that there was something there that it's like it just comes to you like the dream kind of comes to you rather than you going to the dream. Um, t it's for me I think it was I think it was a combination of different things like, but I almost felt like it just was like maybe you have to have a certain level, yeah, like maturity or something that kind of ignites that calling. And then like your dream, like the horse, right? Is it was a very like you would say it's like a very affecting dream, right? It's got this kind of visceral quality to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's happened to me. Like um, certain dreams have had these kind of very shocking elements that it can't be ignored, especially if
Yeah.
it's so
You can't put this
personal.
in this thought. Mm-hmm.
And I read Peterson's dreams in his book, and he seemed to have the same experience where the dreams he was having were so impactful to his experience that he couldn't ignore them. He couldn't really, and he wanted to like reconcile like why is he having these dreams, and Um, I think that so that's a very I guess my question is like, do you feel like, because I've had dreams since I was young, right? Like I think kids have dreams, right? But like the dreams that we have when we're young aren't as affecting, right? Usually they're, I mean, I guess they can be if there's like a nightmare or something, but they're not as affecting in a way that makes you want to like do dream work, like want to understand them and live them, like. And so I wonder, do you never notice that there's as like a quality in your dreams of detail? Like I've noticed that the dreams that have the most impact on me, they're usually more like detailed and more vibrant, and the emotional impact is a lot greater than like my normal dreams. I guess you could say my typical dreams are just like very I would say dim is a good word. Like it's kind of like there's a dim light that that they have but like the dreams that are the most impactful have this kind of like, much more vibrancy. Do you notice that in your dreams as well, or?
Yeah, you're right. There's different kind of brightness to those dreams. The quality is different. Some appear very minor, and usually those respond to immediate personal context. So if I scour through my personal context, I'll find that, okay, I don't know, I dreamed that I'm in a car and I'm going the wrong direction and I have to come back. Okay, so that's, I scour into my personal context, what happened recently, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going this way, and it looks like the dream doesn't want this. And then you've got like those big dreams, it's like, what is this? And those ones are actually much more difficult to understand. Sometimes they trace a development that's over a few months or sometimes over a few years. So you're right, the more brilliant and more vibrant ones, they're much more impressive, but they are also harder to understand, because sometimes you just don't know what's the scope of it is. There's some dreams that seems really to indicate what will happen for the next 5 years, and some it's just like, okay, yesterday I had a confrontation with someone, and then the dream is kind of presenting that, I don't know, I lied to that person, or I didn't stand my ground, or whatever. So there's a scaling thing that is pretty difficult to figure out as well.
Yep, and then you've talked about like flavors before. I feel like that kind of ties into this, where if a certain figure appears in a dream, it almost like they have this kind of a flavor or this aura to them that kind of brings this. It gives like a almost its own life to the dream that you can't really. It can't ignore it. It's like so powerful that you're like, whoa, who is this, or like, what does this dream mean? Because they don't always appear. Like I have certain characters who appear to me, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's almost like they're not like these other dream characters. They have their own kind of life to them or agenda or something that maybe they're special in a certain way. I think that, do you relate to that in any way, where you find certain characters that are more potent or something? They're more powerful in their presence.
Yeah, it's the difference between I would say the technical term is between complex and archetypes. So you can meet in a dream, you can have a dream about a shadow, and so I don't know, you see a ghost or a monster or someone that looks like you, a brother, something that's, if you're a woman, a sister, and sometimes that thing has what's called a numinous quality, an autonomous quality, and it has such a large dimension, and I have the ability to feel into this, and I can recognize that the complex has gained a kind of archetypal dimension. It happens the same way for the anima or the animus. So you can have a lot of dreams with women, but sometimes there's one dream with a feminine character, and she packs a punch in her presence, and there's such an impact of that character on the dream that the complex has taken an archetypal dimension. And when you see a lot of them, then you start to, I start to categorize them. I start to recognize them because they have the same kind of feeling. And then you discover that Jung has written everything about them already. That's the thing that's shocking with Jung. He's not talking about concept. He's talking about experiences about empirical data, but is and when you have the experience, when you have the dream, when you have something like this, his whole, like, a part of his work will completely reveal itself, and it's very shocking to discover that what he's talking, that you can experience what he's talking about. By the same token, if you read Jung and you don't have the right experiences, his books are completely closed to you. There's nothing you can do. It's impenetrable, but if you have the right experience, they light up like I've never seen anything like that. So in the dreams, there's small characters and big characters, and the way I distinguish that is they're complex or part of the psyche, and sometimes they acquire a luminosity, and then they become archetypes, and then you can try to find if this is, the anima, the great mother, the great father, the wise old man, the shadow, the self. It will depend on the kind of phenomenology, the kind of quality they have. So if you face a big rotating circle or mandala, the fact that it's a round ball and it has different abstract qualities, and that would indicate the self. If you have Jesus in your dream, that indicates the self, and so on and so forth.
Right. So what came to mind during that was Jung's dream where he kept digging and into this house, I think in the basement, and he kept finding lower levels, right? And he found these like bones at the bottom. And Freud couldn't really have a good way to explain it. Like, I think I'm wondering if these archetypes, the way they connect to the complexes, it's sort of like the complex falls into the archetype or something, like, or there's some kind of connection that happens, like where the things are lined up or something. Do you agree with Jung's sort of conceptions that, I guess, that of like how that there are archetypes that they sort of undergird our sort of conceptions that we have, our complexes that we kind of deal with in our own minds, our own psyche, like, and that those archetypes are kind of universal. Is that something that you yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the question, something I experience is that, is everything my stuff, right? So you have a dream, is everything just my own psyche? Is everything my own neurotic issues? And that would be the personal level of the psyche of the unconscious. And at some point, I'm not exactly sure how you can experience this in your own life, but there's an impersonal layer that's being revealed. And this impersonal layer is, for instance, you dream of a figure and you've never seen that figure before, and then you see that there's this Greek myth or whatever, and that's the figure that was there. So how can the individual have access to something that's impersonal, that it never knew about before? And that impersonal layer of the unconscious, which is not belonging to the individual, that's when you enter the collective unconscious. That's what Jung means by the collective unconscious. This is a layer of the psyche that does not belong only to an individual, and it appears that there's some foundational structure. So it's not a blank slate. It's not a tabula rasa. There's some foundational structures, and he called them archetypes. The way you would understand that is the body has instincts, foundational way of operating, and the psyche has foundational way of operating, and that would be the archetype. And then there's a more complex discussion to have, but I would say that's a way to start to understand that, yeah, there's some kind of piping at some point. You can't get below it. So that would be a good first approach for people who are new to that. The discussion is extremely nuanced and complicated.
I think that reason I asked that question is because I had a recent dream where my grandma was trying to, we were taking a look at her car, right, and then the dashboard, there was something about this dashboard that was like, we needed to work on it or something. But then, like, I stepped back from the car, and there was like a skeleton there, like it was almost like an animal skeleton that was part of the body frame of the car. And I was like, when I woke up from that, I'm like, I wonder, like, it reminded me of Jung's dream when he saw his his ancestor skeletons. I'm like, is there something more? It sounds a little. It's kind of silly, right? Like, but is there something about these forms that maybe we take for granted that we produce that maybe because I think of these of like all around us are these like creations that we've sort of took from our imagination, right? And we've sort of put them there, and maybe that there's something that we're also deriving from that is not solely part of the human imagination. Maybe they're coming from somewhere deeper, and maybe that's what came to mind for some reason. Like, is there something more to like these forms that we have that are just kind of out there that we just don't really think too much into? But I suppose I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but
if you're a creative person, at some point you have to choose a shape or form, and the process by which this is chosen is not always fully accessible to what you would call ego consciousness. It's like, well, it needed to be here, it needed to be like this. You create some kind of character, and it's like, this is how it should be. And in dreams, it's kind of the same idea. Is the shape that something takes is, we assume, at least this is a working assumption, that the shape that it takes is the best possible representation of what it is. So if it's like bones, then it is like bones. If it's like a grandma, then it is like a grandma. It's not the grandma as such. It is best represented by the symbol of the grandma, by the symbol of the car. So we assume that the choice of the symbol is not random, and then you can take the subjective route and you look for personal association, or you take the objective route. The objective route is like, okay, what is like skeleton and bones, and you will pick up stuff in the culture, and you'll see that it's not random. So you can take the subjective route, and that's led by the dreamer. Sometimes it's necessary to only take that route, and sometimes the dreamer has nothing to say because he don't even understand what the symbol is, and then you can scour the culture and you'll find that there's recurring elements like that. So a symbol has always those kind of two layers, and the best case would be to work at both levels at the same time. It's very hard to do. Usually you pick one over the other.
yeah, I think these are things that people kind of it's almost like our culture doesn't really have the language for, right, like symbols and archetypes, and like it's like it's kind of a missing element, I think, of our culture. Oh yeah, so like when I was learning about dreams and getting more into trying to like interpret them and learn about symbols, I had never really even heard about Carl Jung, until I started to learn about Jordan Peterson, and so I think that, and I think he seems to be a very important. He's probably the most. What do you think about Jung? Would you say he's like the kind of the most? He's done the most work in terms of like trying to lay out what dreams are about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few people who have worked with the unconscious. I've never managed to find Freud interesting for the dream interpretation, because there's dreams I've had that I just can't accept that this is wish fulfillment. Like, if you take my horse dream and you say it's wish fulfillment, like, is this really something that's hiding a wish? Like, I really wanted my horse to die, or if you have nuke dreams, in the case of Peterson, like, this is wish fulfillment. I don't know, man. I can't do it. I've tried. I can't do it. And so then you look around. Pretty difficult to understand Jung. I've went with Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson has a book named Inner Work, and this is I claim this way of looking at dreams, which is, he lays out how he works with dream, and I basically adopted a very similar framework. I put more importance on the personal context than he does, but it's negligible. So yeah, there's not really a culture about this, and I'm not exactly sure it's a problem, in the way that it's pretty difficult, and there's so many traps. And I don't think you can teach this to kids either, because dreams are fairly disturbing as well.
Right.
And yeah, I've been around people who do dream interpretation. Sometimes the interpretation is so bad it would be better if they didn't dream the thing. If you have an ex-girlfriend that tries to come back to you and they say, oh, that's a sign that I need to go back to my ex-girlfriend. That's not how it works. That's really not how it works. That would be a literal reading of the dream, and dreams are symbolic. So I'm of mixed opinion about this. It's you have to dig to find it, which is frustrating, but I'm not exactly sure how making it available to a large public is going to do any good. It's so tricky. It took me like 4 or 5 years to be comfortable enough to start to take others' dreams seriously. So, who's going to subject themselves to this much work?
Right. Especially when I almost feel like the work itself it's something that can become more. I think it's kind of you can kind of underestimate the amount of work that is actually available, and at least that's how it's been for me. But I guess I'll tie that up with I'll just say that there's this interview that Peterson has with Camille Paglia, and they're sort of talking about postmodernism, and how she's mentioned how the real 60s, that's where postmodernism started to she said short circuit like our culture, and I think that's right. That's the right way to put it. And I think that she mentioned Jung was like part of the real 60s vision, and that like the academia maybe it would have been way much more better to have Jung as one of the foundational thinkers going forward, but Jung sort of became taboo apparently after that, or I guess he was always kind of taboo, but because he has some other ideas that people are they don't really seem to get. But I yeah, but it always makes me wonder, what if sort of our culture did move in that direction of like cosmic consciousness, and taking Jung's ideas seriously, and all these things like
I'll just touch on what you said. Jung is taboo, and the reason why is he's proposing a different kind of worldview that clashes with, you would say, the old worldview. So if you look in astrological ages, we're finishing the age of Pisces, and there's the age of Aquarius that's starting. I don't really care about the date, but the worldview that Jung proposed is very much an Aquarian worldview, and where the Piscean worldview is the worldview that we have, and so they clash so hard that there's no amount of criticism there's an endless amount of criticism that comes at Jung from the fact that he's approaching things in such a different manner, and so that's why it's taboo. It's because it's a new way of thinking, it's a new way of understanding things, and it is in tension with the old one, and a lot of people will barricade themselves. Dogmatic people will have a tough time. Materialistic people will have a tough time. Bunch of there's a even occultists will struggle a lot with what he is saying. And so in her book, in a biography of Jung, Marie-Louise von Franz says that this is the old king, and we're talking in symbolic language here. There's the old king that is really not happy with the Jung as kind of a worldview like a sun, and so the old king is holding fast. This patterns of tyrants holding fast when there's a new thing. It's even in the New Testament. There's this old king that refused to see the shining star over Bethlehem. Anyway, so that pattern of the old mode of consciousness fighting the new one is completely acceptable. It takes a lot to move from one of the others, so that also explains the resistance. And there's some people who I don't know if they can't do it, they won't do it, they are not willing to do it, and some other people flow naturally.
I actually did want to ask, are you okay if I ask you about any questions about Gnosticism, or would you prefer not? Because it's kind of a different topic.
If you want to move into Gnosticism, yeah, sure. It will depend whether you want to use it as a way of understanding things symbolically or as a mystery school. It depends.
I think just want to ask some general questions again, sort of like how I was asking about dreams as well, because I think it's sort of still something that a lot of people don't really understand that well. I feel like I do want to ask one more question about something you brought up. Is like there's traps that people fall into. I guess regarding dreams, and like taking dreams literally is one of them, right? So I'm like wondering if do you have any other. Could you say anything else about like what traps there could be that people don't consider when getting into dreams?
Yeah, so I made a dream guide, which is a one-page sheet. There's actually 3 pages, but the guidelines are on the first page. The second page is quotes, and the third page is an example. And those mistakes, I made them so often. Like, this is not me saying, oh, how can people fall into the traps? No, I fell into them so many times that I felt the need to make a checklist at the end. And the checklist goes kind of like this. The first one, are you taking the dream literally or symbolically? If you take it literally, start again. The interpretation is wrong. The second one is, do you think this is about the outer world or the inner world? So if you dream about your mother or father, it's not about the mother or father, the flesh and blood mother and father. It's about what's called the parental image, the parental imagos, the mother image, the father image. So that's part of the inner world. And then there's, are you using the dream to kind of are you learning something out of the dream, or are you confirming a bias? So a lot of people read the dream, it's like, aha, well, that suits me very well. I see in here, I'm fighting against someone. Yeah, you have a dream about fighting someone and you win. They will say, haha, the dream is about me defeating challenges. Well, no, you would say that the psyche is representing a conflict, and the ego is failing the negotiation, whereas it should be more, unequal. It's kind of murdering an aspect of its own psyche. So that would be a way of reading the dream, that you need to humble yourself. You don't need, if you aggrandize yourself in the reading, it's wrong. So there's a checklist on my dream guide. Maybe you will be able to link this in the description below. Those mistakes, I've made them 100 times each. It's absolutely necessary to check for that, because when you have a new contents that show up in the unconscious, usually you tend to externalize it and project it. So if you dream about, I don't know, the conflict in Russia, then it's about the conflict in Russia. No, it's not. There's an aspect of the unconscious that's represented by Russia, and there's a conflict in there that you have to understand. It's a subjective reading. So yeah, there's traps, and everybody will fall into them. There's nothing, I don't think you can avoid them. The best you can do is double check each of those traps, which appears to me to be the main ones.
All right. Yeah, I think that dreaming is a very counterintuitive, you could say, way that people are kind of, we grow up in this, this world. I'm so used to how it works and how things appear and disappear, and people are always the same person, right? But in dreams, what you see can they can be different roles or different complexes, and so it's it's like learning a new language. I think that's a good way to think about it. Like symbolic language is like a new language that you have to kind of just pick up on that over time. It's something you have to develop, I suppose.
You have to double check and triple check against yourself, because we have a tendency to run with an explanation, and it's usually the wrong one. When you get the right one, like your whole body start to buzz, and you feel it really, like you kind of almost shake if you really get to it, whereas most people are satisfied with how it sounds, and so it's a very mental thing. I need to feel it in my body. I need to feel it in my gut, that this is where it is. So it's not I usually don't interpret it from the mental standpoint. I argue against myself until I have this click, and then it kind of sinks into the body, and I'm like, oh damn, I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Yeah, so it's sort of like it's like an embodied process that
Yeah.
you need to pay attention to. I think people kind of don't really realize that about their psyche, is that it is something that is, it's not just mental. It's like not just like in your head or mental. It's like it's through your whole body, right? That you experience
Yep.
these realities in the dream. I did have one more. I suppose before I ask about anything about Gnosticism, I had one more point. I suppose this whole all of the dream work and everything that I sort of have been watching and participating in, it feels like it ties in to what I've learned about psychedelics, or um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what psychedelics fundamentally are. And I think that maybe that's also part of what we could think of like the 60s, or suppose we were supposed to like help usher into the culture more, but of course they were, kind of seen as too dangerous. But I feel like I feel like there is a place for um, the psychedelics, just as there's a place for dream work and understanding dreams, and they seem to go to, at least in my experience, they seem to kind of can kind of go together, and
Yep.
and so I feel like there's a balance to be found with these things.
The common point between those two is the altered state of consciousness, right? There's different way of entering an altered state of consciousness. Meditation can do that. Taking psychedelics can do that. You have to be careful which one you take, because they're not the same. I wouldn't put ayahuasca in the same category as salvia, for instance. So when you enter in communion with a psychedelic, you're gonna see things from the perspective of what you're ingesting. And I've not practiced this. I've just heard people talk about this. The way I get my altered state of consciousness is by doing meditation, exercise, and getting dreams. So it's like a different kind of experience of consciousness. It's a different kind of phenomenology. And for me, it's important that the source remain pure. Though I fully understand why people have to get a bit of help from I don't know, the plant realm or something like this.
Maybe sort of a common point may be that it seems like dreams are sort of catalyzed by DMT in our minds. That seems to be what like science points to, and so that
Yeah,
and,
but
and
that.
right, and DMT is found in ayahuasca and other psychedelics, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
that sort of commonality there. But I suppose that I feel like DDLC like it has psychedelic quality to it, based
Right.
on how you experience the game. It seems.
It makes you shift into this different mode of consciousness, right? You think like everything's fine, and suddenly there's a fourth brick wall or something like this, and suddenly you realize you're somewhere else. And that's very typical from you in psychological language, for the unconscious to visit consciousness and impose itself in vision or fantasies or all kind of stuff. So yeah, I agree with you. There's this aspect of it in it.
Right, and so I think that's highly interesting that we can have a technology that has that quality to it, and it doesn't, and it's not. I think we conventionally think of something as, if it's a psychedelic, it's like you have to, it's like a food or something you ingest, but it seems like if a game can have that kind of quality to it, then maybe we need to rethink like how these things can, how we can experience these things in a way that's not, it's in a way that's maybe healthier or just more accessible, and
I mean,
have you seen the AI visuals, the one that constantly shapes and morphs? That's very close to altered state of consciousness as well. I don't like it. I'm just saying that what you see here is this kind of endless morphing into different shapes. That's very close to dreams, because dreams do that. You start in a train, then you're in the bus, and then something else happening.
I think I know what you're talking about, where it takes like a picture or something, and then maybe it'll make it transition to some other image where there's all these
Mhm.
other factors that can suddenly change, right? Like the objects can change from like a beach can turn like a sand castle on a beach turns into like an animal or something.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's very typical from the unconscious.
Right. That's yeah. I think AI. I don't know what. I think there's something about AI that it feels has a potential for a dream to be very dreamlike. All right, so I'm gonna not ask as many questions about Gnosticism, but I do wanna. I think it's very interesting because I think that it's it's also something that sort of just became more prevalent as I was doing like dream work, like these ideas, these Gnostic ideas. And so I just want to ask, what is do you have like a shorter way to explain like what is Gnosticism? So someone maybe who doesn't really know anything about it can understand what it is.
Yeah, that's a tough question because Gnosticism has a different kind of cult. It's a very it's not homogeneous at all. There's a lot of internal disagreement, but I'll try. So what are the common elements between Gnostics, let's say? Well, as far as I know, the first one is on the name, right? Gnosis. So gnosis is a practice of, I would say, in modern terms, you would say a practice of self-knowledge, of gaining information from the individual. If you were in Christian language, you would call that practicing revelation. But in Gnosticism, it's not exactly that. It's cultivating kind of inner knowing, a revelatory knowing, and kind of exploring the world within the lens of your individual development. That's what gnosis means for me. And so when I do dream interpretation, I mean, I'm doing gnosis, I suppose. Like, I'm doing self-knowledge. But I see this in continuity. So that's the first element. It's very much individually based compared to a collective or a tradition. You're welcome to explore, whereas in something like the church, you have to measure everything to the Bible, and there's good reason for that, and there's more or less bad reason for that. We will leave that on the side. Well, then by doing gnosis, what the Gnostic found is that there's two key players that are not necessarily recognized. The first one is called the demiurge, and its principalities, its archons, and so it's a kind of adversarial force. And the second one is Sophia. So Sophia is a feminine force. Sophia means wisdom, and so there's a cosmic conflict between the demiurge and Sophia, and the anthropos. So man as a blueprint, you could say, not man as an ego, but man as a blueprint with all its potential is kind of stuck in the middle between the Sophianic force and the demiurge. And so if you look at the Sophianic myth, it tells this very long story of this being that's the youngest eon of the Pleroma. This Pleroma is this far removed place who kind of monitoring creation. It's part of creation, but not really. Kind of the place before creation, and Sophia gets so interested into her creation that she falls into the realm and becomes part of the realm. And as she does that, there's a problem that appears in the horizon, and that's the demiurge. The demiurge is, for the lack of a better word, an imposter god. So it's a god that thinks it's the god, right? It's a I don't know, an entity that thinks is the creator of everything and anything. And so Sophia doesn't like that, and she makes a plan with the anthropos, with man as potential, that the demiurge can do whatever he wants. He's going to be defeated from within. So that means that the cooperation between the Sophianic force and the feminine Sophianic force and the anthropos, so man as it's meant to fully be, will kind of trap and defeat the demiurge from its own construction. So demiurge thinks he's controlling everything, and he's going to lose control of it. Now that's a wonderful myth. It's a very, in my opinion, as such a pessimistic myth, because what is it? An imposter god? Now that's a horrible thought. What it means is that there's something beyond that imposter god, and it's the pleroma and this Aeon that's so passionate that she's all in. She's all in this process, and she want to help man as such to liberate the realm from within. So there's a very deep trust between those two components. Now this is a myth. It might be worthwhile to translate it into psychological language, just for de-dramatizing and kind of making the person feel what this is about. So the idea would be that that humans have gained something like free will, and free will too easily is, the use of consciousness can too easily become like the demiurge. So you would ignore nature and you would conquer and devour and consume and go rampant around the realm. There's no respect, there's no harmony, nothing is sacred, and so as people, at a psychological level, we tend to use our free will in the same way that the demiurge is. We think we are creator of our own life. If I want to eat a burger, I can eat a burger. If I want to eat a triple chocolate milkshake, I can. But what about my instincts? Am I actually hungry, or am I just binging on sugar? What about my digestive system? It might say no. And if I decide to go into a relationship or start a job, am I actually in tune with my instincts? Is this something I'm meant to do? Is this I'm enamored by my own ideas? And so when the ego uses its free will like that, it becomes an enemy to life, because though it has the right to exert autonomy, it also is completely detached from any kind of natural relationship. And so in this case, the unconscious plays a Sophianic role, because it gives us a perspective onto which it reveals that the use of will is either in line with the instincts, with the psyche, or not. So in modern terms, this is how I like to understand the myth, is that we tend to use free will and see ourselves as the own creators of everything, but actually it's not the case. We misuse free will like a demiurge, and we need the help of our instincts, of everything we have that's not just the will, so we can come and participate in the right way, right? If you align yourself with the flow instead of, I don't know, doing whatever you want, this is what I've experienced, right? I tried to make my life happen by my own means, by my own will, and I suffered quite a lot. And so now I'm in this process of trying to use free will responsively, which means to align myself with those phenomenological markers and psychological markers. So dreams, this embodied character I have, how I feel about things, how people respond around me. So yeah, that's the best answer I can give, so that people don't get lost in the scale of the myth that Gnosticism proposes. It's very if you don't understand, or not understand, if you put a priority on the imposter god, you will go into a world negating attitude. It's not possible to cope with that. It's too dramatic. People get resentful. They reject life. It's much better to watch this at a individual level as a conflict. And if you want, then you can scale it at a collective level and say, well, this is actually a guiding myth for people, and maybe it has some degree of objective truth, but the degree of objective truth for me is less important than this idea of redeeming the anthropos, so the human has potential out of his tyrannical and egoistical use of free will. That really that I think hits the spot in a way that is very useful to move forward.
Wow, that was very that was eloquent and very descriptive. I'm very impressed. I feel like this myth. I feel like DDLC has a very the way that DDLC presents itself seems to have a very strong Gnostic. Um, I don't know how to put it. Like the game itself, the way it sort of portrays or lays out, I guess, it feels very Gnostic to me. But that I think that's something probably not to get into right now. I do want to ask, since you did bring up the sort of resentment that can come from this myth, like especially if you
Yeah.
really dwell on this demiurge character. Do you feel like since I grew up in a Christian milieu, so like I have these Christian maybe roots is the word. Do you feel like Christianity is sort of having Christianity as a worldview is a good precursor to or it's a good thing to have before to getting into more of a Gnostic worldview, because I feel like there's simplicity in the Christian myth of like devil, just like this adversary, the devil, and then there's a God who's all good, who's more akin to the all Father, I guess, or the monad in Gnosticism. Like, do you think there's utility in that, or do you think that it's not really something to be? Do you think like Christianity and maybe the Abrahamic religions don't really have any place in this? And then I guess to add on to that, just a small bit is like, do you feel what it sounds like when you talk about Gnosticism is that it seems just like it almost seems like a role reversal, where you have, instead of the father, the masculine being the good one, you have the demiurge being the bad one, and then you have the feminine. You have this feminine character, Sophia, who's the good one instead. Do you feel like it's sort of just like a reversal in a way, or is it deeper? Is it more kind of complex than that?
You're asking such a massive question. I'm not saying it's wrong to ask that question, but it's asking a lot out of me to try to put this into terms.
Okay.
It's fine. I'll give it a go. So I have a Gnostic tendency, as I've explained. I think I've got a good handle on the myth. I understand it in a way that I think is useful, but I do not resent Christianity either. And so, how do I live with this tension between one that says, wow, there's an imposter god and it's likely Yahweh, Gnosticism, and in the other way, there's this story of the redemption of everything, which is Christianity, right? It's a chosen people, and then the incarnation, and then the crucifixion and the resurrection. So how can I live with this tension without experiencing, I should break into pieces, because logically it's you can't really pick one side or both sides at the same time. I'm not exactly sure how to explain how I can live with that. It appears that the guiding myth of Christianity, which is, the fulfillment of the, it's a process of incarnation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's this Yahweh who lives kind of above and is very focused with how the chosen people are behaving. And then there's a pivot in the Old Testament, which according to Jung is the book of Job. So then there's incarnation of the deity, and the incarnation is fulfilled by a fate that seems to have been accepted. It's not something that is random, and that leads to the death and the resurrection. And so this pattern, which is the redemption of everything, that's how it's understood. It's the redemption of the sin of Adam, right? It appears that we've left the Garden of Eden, which is a state of wholeness, and we have a massive journey through the Valley of Tears, and that leads us to a final confrontation with the cross. And if you survive this, if you die and you are reborn in the right way through the resurrection, it redeems everything at once. So it looks like there's a plan for the redemption of all the sins that mankind has acquired by leaving paradise. That appears to be the myth into which the Abrahamic religion is pushing the individual in. And it's such a horrible myth when you think about it, that it would be easier to step out of it, but I don't think you can. I don't think I can say much more than this. So on one side we have the redemption of the free will by the Sophianic powers, and on the other hand we have the fate through the cross, which leads to the redemption of everything. They might not be so incompatible.
So there could be they could go together in some mysterious way.
Yes,
Yeah, in both cases you have the redemption of the, how would you say, I don't know, of
the individual.
of the entire. Yeah, the redemption of the individual leads to the redemption of everything, because if the anthropos manage to, how would you say, work with the demiurge, or eliminate the threat of the demiurge, or if in Christianity if Christ goes through the resurrection, then you have a kind of post-human condition. Yeah, let's go with that. You acquire a post-human condition that is described as redemptive. And it's not just redemptive for the individual, it's redemptive for the collective. So there's a deep journey of transformation, and it's those myths are better be treated with the utmost respect.
And where can people? What are the sources that people can look at for Gnosticism? Like, what are they easy to find? Are they
no.
Are there texts that? So what do you? So do you think that Gnosticism has been sort of been like suppressed by?
Entirely. The
Okay.
Library of Alexandria was probably burned because it had those texts. It also, there's been when the church established Christianity as the state religion, it did a crusade on Gnostic cults. Some of them rebelled, and some of them were happy to die because they have developed such a nihilistic view. Anyway, the point is that yes, what has appeared is that the Nag Hammadi has reappeared. So the Nag Hammadi is a bunch of old text that has been found somewhere, and a bunch of Christian people have tried to translate them, and sadly they brought a bias into it which makes the reading completely incomprehensible. And there's one individual which is it's called John Lemblash, and he has done his best to reconstruct the Sophianic narrative from the standpoint of the Gnosticism as a mysteries cult, and that I found that's the best thing I could point to people. So it's the website, something like sophianicmyth.org. We can put that in the description box. But otherwise, I don't know. I don't know how can people learn about Gnosticism. Really, it's very.
It almost feels like you need to be like inducted by, the the pleromic forces or something for you to even. Because I think it's very easy, I think, for people to laugh at it or just dismiss it very. Just, But I think that there is like, I wanted to mention this earlier. This morning, I sort of had this choice, I suppose, to sort of maybe you could say, because you kept mentioning instincts when we were talking about dreams, right? Like that there's value to instincts that our modern materialist culture doesn't really teach us about. But I feel like I sort of had this intuition about what I should do, and then I followed it. It was a battle that I did. I followed it, and then I had this just crazy synchronicity later that morning. I was like yelling, and I was like, it's very difficult to ignore those occurrences, and I feel like that's in a way like you can almost sense, like it's like your intuition gets tuned a little bit whenever you are paying attention to these things, and I suppose, like, is that how it is for you as well? Like, do you notice when you follow your intuition or your instincts? I don't know how you differentiate those, but is it the case that you have these sort of like the universe kind of yes moments where it's kind of like you feel like you're going on the right path, or you're going into this flow state more, where it's like you're being accepted more by some outer force that maybe you could call the Holy Spirit or something like that.
Yeah, reality conspire both for you and against you. If you're lucky, it goes for you. If you're not so lucky, yeah, and you take bad decision, it's going to conspire against you and corner you in such a way that it's very, very difficult to cope with. So yes, I have that. I kind of maintain, my experience of consciousness and try to see when I'm being interrupted and how forceful the interruption is, or sometimes when I'm being supported and how the support feels.
So it's partly luck, but what else is it? I think it's also like maybe logos, like paying attention, and also just maybe like maybe eros, like feeling out what is the right thing to do, something like that. Like you have to pay attention to these other other things that are these faculties that we have, right? And that is that.
Yeah.
It's hard because there's also a symbolic dimension. So if you're interrupted by an animal, or you're interrupted by I don't know something that breaks, or you get a letter by the mail, and then you open the letter and it's like, oh man, what is this? Or you get an email, and on the email there's a line. It's endlessly playful, this phenomenon, and what you have to get is the sense of support or the sense of interruption. And depending on that, you can reorient yourself.
There's like this mystery component that you can't really get rid of, it seems.
Yeah, it's endlessly surprising. I'm not really surprised by synchronicity as such, because I got to hang on to the phenomenon, but I'm always surprised by how, wow, I didn't see this one coming.
Right.
So
I think
it's enjoyable.
It's the feeling that you never. I think that's what gets me. It's always there's always the feeling that you never expect how powerful it's going to be, or how it's going to make you feel. Because I think that there's just been a variety of feelings I've gotten from synchronicity, and you know this based on some of our conversations.
Yeah.
But all right, I'm going to just wrap up real. So Gnosticism is like the central idea is that we are in this world where we're part of a culture, and we've gotten a lot of our identity from this culture, but that there is a reality kind of outside the culture that there's like the eye above the pyramid, right? That it's there even though we can't see it. It's kind of like there's other things that can call our attention that may seem not to make sense from within our culture, but like from within like from dreams, since they kind of are part of nature. That this is kind of what Gnosticism is pointing to, that there are truths and realities that are kind of not really part of our understanding from an early age, that we have to like become accustomed to these truths, and when we do that, we sort of are becoming more individuated and more what would you say? It's like we're closer to like an ultimate truth than before. Is that how you would put it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna read it at an individual level. It appears that it's not that material reality is evil. That's really not what Gnosticism about. What he's saying is there's a simulacrum that's a kind of a black cube, a control system onto which we are trapped in. So there's it's not reality that's evil, it's the simulacrum into which we live, this kind of invisible prison. And so at an individual level, this invisible prison is kind of a rigid way of operating the world, its belief system, worldview, and there's forces that kind of poke fun at this, and those forces that poke fun at this are what the greater reality is about. So synchronicity is a force that will poke at the rigid ideological system or the rigid worldview that you have. It's like, oh, I'm going to do this with my will, and you're poked by the kind of transpersonal quality that this has. or you are absolutely convinced you're doing the right thing and you get a nightmare. Well, then you're being poked by the conception you have of how life is. So those interrupting forces points to the greater nature, and how limited the ego is. The ego is convinced that the right use of the will is what will decide reality, but you can't you can't do that. Reality is way too complex. You need help from something else. So I would point to this in this manner, that this is this kind of evasion from this invisible prison that we live in is done by this phenomenon that's kind of, I don't know, it's not under conscious control. Let's put it that way.
Right, and I think that's the big deal that's the kind of the big idea with dreams as well, that we're not really in control as much as we think we are, that there are unconscious forces that are working in the background, that we are, we can become more aware of them through our, work on ourselves, but, ultimately it's like we're like piloting a very large vehicle that we don't really know too much about.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good way of we're the captain of a ship and we don't understand the ocean. That's kind of what it is.
Yeah, or maybe the ship itself. Like there's also things in the ship we haven't been to.
There's some of that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually do have do you want to do this quick fire round? Just a few questions, like you can just I'm looking for like very quick answers to.
I'll do my best.
All right. Are you night owl or early bird?
Night owl, for sure.
All right. I feel like I'm not sure which one I am, honestly. I think I go back and forth. Let's see. So, cats or dogs?
Dogs. No discussion.
Oh, okay. That's for some reason I was expecting cats. All right. Favorite author?
Favorite author.
Demiurge.
I suppose the person I've bought the most book of is this Jungian analyst called Edward Edinger. So if you look at my shelf, that's the author I bought everything from. So Edward Edinger, that's likely it.
Okay. Favorite fictional character?
Favorite fictional character? Ooh. God, I might give you like a Final Fantasy X or Neon Genesis Evangelion, I suppose, as really like more like stories with characters that really are interesting to me.
Yeah.
So it's not one single; it's more like the harmony of them.
All right. Yeah, Evangelion is awesome. Let's see. And then one more. Do you prefer anime or live action film?
I really had an amazing time with anime when I was younger, but I've not seen many good stuff capturing my attention in recent years. So and live action movie, I'm pretty difficult with movie. I watch them usually for different reasons. I would say I have a slight preference for anime, but I can't find anything novel. I'll go back to the classics.
All right. Well, thank you for this. Thanks for you were very eloquent and very you know your stuff when it comes to dreams. I think, but I don't really know anyone else who is dedicated to you. So.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It also allows me to articulate stuff I've been keeping for myself. As you know, I'm a fairly private person, but it feels like I've shared dreams in person and with other people, that it feels it's time for me to kind of assert this stuff I've been keeping for myself. Hopefully people will find value in that. I'm kind of doing in a way that I'm exposing some of the stuff I would prefer to remain private. But if the dream's telling me this is where I should go, I'll do it. Awesome.
Yeah. All right, then. I guess that that should be it for now. Maybe I'll see on your maybe on your podcast soon, or your channel. All right.
Yeah, see you for the next one.